right, I'm going to give you my top 10 predictions that will affect the housing industry in 2023. Number one, right off the top, inflation is taking a dive. It's going to go bye-bye and leave the building, but it's going to be replaced by deflation. We're going to see in the next coming months that the consumer price index, and this is, once again, these are all my predictions, but the CPI will drop to negative numbers. Last month, it went up 0.1% from the prior month. It's going to, I predict this next report will show that the CPI is actually negative. CPI is Consumer Price Index. Think of it like this. There's a basket of goods. They add the total for all those and they look at it, technically they look at it versus what that same basket would cost a year ago. If you look at it month to month, it only went up 0.1%. If you look at it year over year, it went up about 7%. My contention is the Fed does this, and you really should look at this. You really need to know what's happening right now, because that'll tell you what's going to happen next month more than a year ago would. All right, so deflation is just around the corner. We're going to see the economy drop because of the recession that's impending, and you're going to see deflationary pressure. That's going to force, I think, the Fed to do a turnabout and maybe raise rates. We'll talk about that in a second. Number two, home prices will decline 10 to 20%. Across the board, 10%, and in some markets, 20%, maybe even a little bit more. Keep in mind, during 2022, most markets declined about 10%, roughly 10%. Some areas went a little bit more, some went a little bit less, but generally across the board. Some of the markets that had a lot of investor activity went further down, and this year as well, the ones that had a lot of investor activity will drop closer to that 20%, and in a couple cases, maybe even 30%. Number three, rental markets are crashing right now, and they will continue to crash through 2023. If you're a landlord, you already know you're not going to be able to get as much now as you were getting a year ago. And for anybody who had their rent jacked up on them, if you're a renter and you had your rent jacked up on you in 2022, when it comes up for renewal in 23, I would go in there and hammer that landlord and show them comparable rents in the area, and you'll see they've gone down dramatically. 10 to 20% is what I'm looking at. One of the biggest reasons is there's 917,000 apartment units under construction right now as we sit here in January of 23. And of those units, almost all of them are going to be competing for the same people that rent these homes, especially the smaller homes, the entry-level type things. And so, you've got a choice. You're going to have a brand new apartment. It's got all the newest amenities for $1,000, or you can rent this home for $2,000 in 1950s beat up home that's not being maintained by the landlord. So you're going to see a lot of transition from single family homes to luxury apartments, and they're coming on the market en masse this year, almost a million units. Number four, investors will sell and they will run for the exits. There are 28 million homes, approximately 25 to 28, depending on who you talk to, million homes owned in the U.S. by investors, landlords, typically mom and pop investors who own a property and rent it out to supplement their income or in their IRA account or something like that. And there's about 100 million homes owned total in the United States, or not just owned total, but basically 100 million homes in existence. So even if 10% of these investors say, I'm done, rent rates are dropping, I'm getting a hassle, I'm getting sued by my tenants, so you're going to see a lot of that coming on too. They're just going to say, forget it, I'm going to sell it. If only 10% of those people decide to sell, that's 2.8 million homes coming on the market that weren't expected to come on the market. Now, keep in mind, investors' purchasing of homes to put into the rental fleet has been cut in half from what it was a year ago, and I think it's going to get cut in half again in some cities. And where they bought 100 2 years ago, they may only buy 20 this year, or 25, or something like that. Anyway, if you add 2.8 million homes to the properties for sale out there, in a market that currently sells about 4 to 5 million homes a year. That's the total it sells in the U.S. right now, probably 4.5 million, something like that. You add 917,000 new apartments, and you add 2.8 million homes that are going to get sold by landlords, and then you add the foreclosure stuff in there, you're going to have like 10, 12 million homes on the market at any point in time for a market that probably is going to struggle just to sell 4 million homes. Probably 3.5 this year is be my guess. All right, number five, mortgage defaults and foreclosures are going to surge. The government injected $5 trillion into the economy during this COVID and subsequent periods of time. That went to increasing employment, and that went to buying things, either toys or things for businesses out there that are no longer needed, frankly. Not just the employees, which are no longer needed in a lot of cases, but the toys, the stuff. All of this stuff will cause people to not be able to afford their mortgages. When people get laid off, they can't make their mortgage payment. They'll go into default first, and then they'll go into foreclosure, full foreclosure after that. So I think you're going to see a large chunk, and a lot of these folks, by the way, were members of this forbearance agreement that the government's put together. And something like 1.2 million of these folks got to the end. They've been kicked out of forbearance. Now they're back in a restated mortgage or some new terms. And I predict probably half of those people either already currently in default or will be in default. It's not uncommon when we talk to sellers to find somebody who's not made a home payment for 4 years or 3 years, and then their first payment out the gate after forbearance, they miss that. And they immediately, the banks are no longer tolerant of this shenanigans. They're immediately putting these guys into default. All right, number 6, California and Florida are going to take the brunt of the price and the rent decreases. So a lot of reasons. Florida is basically a leisure type state. It's Airbnb and rentals, and it's primarily DSCR, debt coverage loans. And California is non-conforming loans. They don't fit inside the government dollar limits. And these tend to be the two riskiest type of loans. So the economy goes whoosh, and the foreclosures go whoosh, like that. And you're going to see more of that happen in California and Florida. Number 7, the Fed will need to reverse course, in spite of what they said a couple of weeks ago or 10 days ago, where Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, said we're not going to decrease interest rates this year at all. And that, by the way, was a punitive slap to the face of the stock market folks, because they were too excited about good news. He tamped that down and smashed it by saying we're not going to decrease interest rates during 2023. I think they'll have to reverse course. If they don't, we'll hit stagflation, and that's a horrible thing. It hasn't happened since 1971 during the Nixon administration. It is worse than inflation. It's worse than deflation. It's worse than a recession. It's right up there with a Great Recession or Great Depression that we had starting 1929 through the early 30s. So I think they're going to have to reverse course and drop interest rates. That's what I'm predicting. The number 8, the everything bubble will burst. Everything has been inflated because primarily this $5 trillion that was pumped into the economy. All of these markets that were overpriced, houses, rentals, cars, washing machines, TVs, computers, all of that stuff is going down right now. And this is really, we talk about housing bubble, but it's really an everything bubble. Everything got inflated, and it's all going to drop quickly. Stock market's hitting new lows, has been. Bitcoin took a huge tumble. Cryptos, all kinds of things. It's the everything bubble, and it is collapsing as we speak. Number 9, certain cities are going to have the biggest declines, and I think they'll be north of 20% in home prices. They are Portland, Sacramento, Boise, Salt Lake City, and Las Vegas. Also, you can throw in Austin, Texas, but Austin took about 20% hit in 22. So the hit will keep coming, but it probably won't be another 20. It could be, but it is also dramatically slowing down. The 10th thing is stubborn sellers are going to wave the white flag this year, and I predict this will happen by summer, and then they'll throw those properties on the market. Now, these are sellers that have been intransigent and they have not come off their price. Those of you who are in the investment community, you've talked to some of these yahoos over the last year or so. These guys think that everything's roses and that they've got the best house and, the best thing since sliced bread, canned beer, and whatever. And they don't. And they are been unwilling to drop their price. They pulled their house off the market. It's going to fool them. It's going to catch them in the neck, because what's happened is when they pulled off the market has dropped. Now they're going to come back in the market, and they're going to be forced to sell because of some other reason. It's like some change in family circumstances or financial circumstances. And they're going to be shocked when they find out they can't sell it for $300. Now they'll be lucky to get $200. And if they don't hurry, they're going to lose it and get it sold for only $150. So that's going to happen. That is happening today. And you'll see these guys wave the white flag, throw their house on the market, say, screw it, give me whatever you can do. So those are my top 10 predictions for things that are going to happen that will affect the real estate industry in 2023. We'll do this again a year from now, and we'll see how well we do. All right, thanks everybody. Okay, thank you for watching. If you get a minute, I would love to hear your comments about what you think of these videos. Feel free also to put in any topics down here in the comment section, things that you'd like to hear me discuss. Any questions you want, go ahead and put in here. We'll make sure we get a video on it when we get time. And as always, please like and subscribe. Hit that ring the bell button as well to get notified every time there is a new video. Thanks a lot, everybody.